White Castle is a regional hamburger restaurant chain that opened in 1921. Thank you for your suggestion.
Double beef, topped with double cheese. Order 2 doubles with regular fries and your soft drinks free.
Double beef, topped with double cheese. Order 2 doubles with regular fries and your soft drinks free.
Buy 2 White Castle double cheeseburgers or 2 White Castle double hamburgers with fries and get a 20-ounce soft drink free. But hurry, the special offer ends soon.
Order 2 doubles with regular fries and your soft drinks free.
In 1921, Walt Anderson met E.W. Ingram, and together they began the restaurant chain White Castle in Wichita, Kansas. In 1916, Anderson began to sell hamburgers out of a streetcar body in a busy intersection in Wichita, Kansas. His hamburgers were a hit, and the number of hamburger stands grew until he had enough money to open his own shop. Using the slogan, "Buy 'em by the sack," Anderson sold a good number of hamburgers. Walter Anderson, who was a short-order cook, developed a process in 1916 for making the lowly regarded hamburger more palatable to a distrusting public. The burgers were cooked by placing small balls of ground beef on a grill with toppings of diced onions. The ground beef balls were then squashed and flipped over before a bun and pickle was added. The customer was then served up a slider made with unfrozen beef. In 1921, Anderson took on a partner, Edgar Ingram, a real estate and insurance salesman. With just $700, the two partners opened a tiny White Castle-looking burger shack in Wichita, Kansas. Ingram coined the name and image of White Castle based on the theory that white signifies purity and castle represents strength, permanence, and stability. The burger chain almost didn't even happen because Ingram had plans to go into the insurance business, but only decided to switch gears after meeting Anderson and being convinced that hamburgers were the way to go. The first location opened on September 13, 1921, and has been generally credited as the world's first fast food hamburger chain. White Castle would be known for its small square hamburgers, referred to as sliders. The burgers were initially priced at 5 cents until 1929. Among the first for the chain and in the industry, Anderson developed an assembly line kitchen, built a reputation for cleanliness, and introduced paper hats and napkins. The two men incorporated the business in 1924 and named it White Castle System of Eating Houses Corporation. In the first few decades of the 20th century, burgers weren't just considered an unrefined food, but downright dangerous. People looked at hamburgers as being greasy health hazards on par with eating arsenic. At the time, Americans were hesitant to eat ground beef after Upton Sinclair's 1906 novel, The Jungle, had publicized the poor sanitation practices of the meatpacking industry. In order to get misinformed public in the door and ordering his White Castle hamburgers, Ingram worked out a deal with the University of Minnesota to research the health of the food. Bernard Flachet volunteered to help and eat just hamburgers for 13 weeks straight and drink water. Flachet maintained good health throughout the entire 13 weeks, and Ingram incorporated the study into White Castle's marketing campaign to prove customers could eat only his burgers and still maintain physical and mental faculties. To invoke a feeling of cleanliness, the restaurants were small buildings with stainless steel interiors and employees outfitted with spotless uniforms. Their first restaurants in Wichita were a success, and the company branched out into other Midwestern markets, starting in 1922 with El Dorado, Kansas. The third White Castle in Indianapolis was built in 1927 and had exteriors of white enamel glazed brick and interiors of enameled steel. The two founders established a motto: serve the finest products for the least cost in the cleanest surroundings with the most courteous personnel. The two also had another motto: he who owes no money will never go broke. Between 1923 and 1931, White Castle Systems established 100 restaurants in cities across the Midwest. In 1931, White Castle became the first fast food restaurant to advertise in a newspaper. Ingram and Anderson chose to concentrate on the generating new carry-out business, as counter space inside the restaurant was limited to under 20 seats. In the early 1930s, the company developed a few innovations that would become a norm in the industry. White Castle developed the cardboard cartons with heat-resistant linings, the first paper cartons used in the food industry. The company then expanded this concept to include cardboard containers for hot and cold drinks, French fries, and pie. Other innovations introduced during this time included improving the quality and safety of beef through the use of frozen hamburger patties, as well as a patented coffee mug design and exhaust systems and specially designed griddles in the restaurants. In 1932, White Castle incorporated its first subsidiary, the Paper Linen Company, to manufacture paper hats worn by the White Castle employees. In 1934, Ingram bought out his partner's interest in the operation and moved to Columbus, Ohio, purchasing a 10-acre tract of land which the company set up as corporate headquarters and its porcelain steel manufacturing operations. Although the company was founded in Wichita, Kansas, yet you won't find a single White Castle in the state of Kansas. In fact, the last White Castle closed in the state in 1938, making it the last location in the founding state. Despite the severe economic effects of the Great Depression, White Castle's business grew steadily during the 1930s, but the business slowed during World War II due to food rationing. Due to shortages of beef caused by rationing, the number of restaurant units shrunk from 100 to 70. White Castle's subsidiaries stopped making restaurant equipment and devoted their efforts to supporting the war. In 1949, a White Castle employee made the discovery that a broken hamburger patties cooked faster. This led to the development of White Castle's signature 5-hole hamburger, a process that allowed the burger to cook more quickly and eliminated the time-consuming task of flipping the burger. The economy resumed its growth in the 1950s, and White Castle expanded into high-traffic urban areas in the Northeast, such as Detroit, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Cleveland, and New York City. During that time, the company began the practice of selling frozen hamburger patties to customers who wanted to cook them at home. By 1963, White Castle was operating 100 restaurants in 11 metropolitan areas and owned 34 prime properties and 2 manufacturing subsidiaries. Growth continued to grow steadily throughout the 1960s with little change in the menu, with the exception of its 1965 decision to use all vegetable oil for the French fries, onion rings, and other fried foods, which was another industry first. When founder Billy Ingram died in 1966, his son E.W. Edgar Ingram Jr. subsequently assumed the post of president. The company likes to keep its fast food empire within the family and doesn't sell its business locations. The company wants to maintain semi-localized menu offerings and keep restaurant locations within close proximity to its supply facilities. So it's no wonder when people question why there are not a lot of White Castle locations found throughout the country like McDonald's or other fast food operations. The relatively small number of locations is due to the Ingram family's steadfast refusal to franchise or take on debt throughout the company. From 1970 to the late 1980s, however, White Castle grew slowly but steadily. In 1977, E.W. Bill Ingram III took over as president of the company, the third generation of Ingrams to hold that post. 2 years later, in response to changes in the fast food industry, the company opened its first drive-thru establishment in Indianapolis. From 1977 to 1987, the number of restaurants grew by over 100. In 1981, the company instituted its innovative Hamburgers to Fly program, a service that provided a toll-free number through which people could order frozen White Castle burgers and have them delivered anywhere in the United States within 24 hours. During the 1980s, frozen White Castle hamburgers virtually created their own supermarket niche as private entrepreneurs purchased frozen burgers from restaurants and resold them to grocery stores at a profit. In 1987, White Castle decided to get in on its own game. The company discontinued its Hamburgers to Fly program, incorporated White Castle Distributing, Inc., and began an intensive campaign to market its frozen burgers at supermarkets across the United States. Sales grew by an average of 15 to 20% annually. By 1989, White Castle had 243 restaurants in operation, with an average volume per store second only to McDonald's. By the end of the 1990s, White Castle operated 345 restaurants, located primarily in urban areas in the Midwest and the eastern United States. The burger chain was not franchised, much like In-N-Out and Whataburger. All U.S. units are owned and operated by White Castle System, of which the Ingram family has been sole proprietor since 1933. Since the year 2000, small changes have been made at White Castle. In 2004, the restaurant was the central plot device of the comedy film Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. In 2015, Billy Ingram III retired at the age of 65, and his daughter Lisa Ingram became the new president. That same year, the first White Castle in the far western United States opened in Las Vegas. Locations would soon follow in Arizona, Florida, and even China. Today, there are 345 White Castle outlets as of May 3, 2023, predominantly in the Midwest, Kentucky, and Tennessee. White Castle also has locations in New York, New Jersey, Nevada, Arizona, and Florida, mainly in its metropolitan areas. So what do you remember about this place? Leave a comment or a suggestion for a future video below. And if you haven't already, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.